Well, fellers. Welcome to another friggin' episode of Ethan the Fence Man. In the last episode on our Grand Prix escapades, we did a whole lot of real quality work to the top end of the motor. And I left y'all with the cliffhanger of I ain't put coolant in it yet. Let's see where all it comes out. She's got a popped out freeze plug. Why wouldn't it? You know what I mean? Just, why not? On the bright side, I still have it. I found it in there on top of the trans, between the transaxle and the engine. Yeah. Yep. Good thing we went ahead and reassembled all of this and put the wiring harness and everything back down and this thing all back in the way before we dumped water in it and figured out there's a whole friggin' freeze plug blown out. But yeah, yep, that's great. So, you probably can't tell, but see here, that's the power steering pump. You see back there, you see that piece of metal right my finger was in the way of? That little bracket? Yeah, right on the other side of that, in between the block and the transaxle, is where that freeze plug came out of. Great. So, I'm hoping that maybe it's like it is impossible to get to from underneath. Yeah, from under here you can kind of tell the situation. There's the bottom corner of that power steering pump. There's the wiring harness we just put right back in our way. And behind that wiring harness, you see that metal bracket way over there? Yeah, on the other side of that is our blown out wide open freeze plug hole. I love freeze plug holes. Okay, so I'm hoping that just maybe if I remove a bunch of the stuff I just put up top, the alternator and the bracket and whatnot, maybe we can get the power steering pump off, unless you have to, unless you gotta pull the pulley off to remove the pump, then in which case the entire front subframe has to come down. Either way, one way or another, we have to figure out how to get in there. So I guess my first plan of attack is gonna be remove this, remove that, remove that, remove that, and maybe we can remove that, and yeah. Now we're moving backwards. Got the alternator, its bracket, came out of the two coolant ports there. The power steering pump, luckily enough, I didn't have to take the pulley off to remove it. There's holes in the pulley, you just gotta rotate it and line them up. There's 1/2 inch bolt up top and one down low. Big ol' long fellers. And that might get this guy out of the way far enough. It looks like I'm going to need to drain the fluid out of it and take the return line loose, and then I should be able to leave the pressure line on and just hang her up over here. And then as soon as that's over out of the way, we'll try to get back to that bracket over there behind everything. All right, fellers, that there is a transaxials to engine mountification bracket. And when you remove a bunch of your spinny bits here and get that pump out of the way and take that thing out of the way, oh, then you fall on the floor. Then, and only then, can you get access all up over here to that side of the engine block. And if you can't tell, there she blew. Now, it looks like it's, still a little less than ideal on the specifications, but I can get in here well enough to clean that hole all out with some sandpaper and whatnot, make a really nice sealing surface again, and goop the RTV around, put the new freeze plug up to it, and from there it's really gonna get interesting, because normally you tap it in with a hammer, but yeah. So maybe we can do some prying, sideways edging. It's gonna be horrible, but look, there it is. We can get to it. We didn't even have to drop the whole subframe, pull the engine out of the car. Woo! Fellers, me and the freeze plugs. Let me tell you, it was no problem at all to, get in there and scritch, sand it up with the old 80 grit and get it all smooth, put a bead of RTV around the inside of it, and get the original freeze plug. I don't remember if I told you, but I found it. It like fell right up in there. But yeah, it was nothing to get it in place, but pushing that guy in, I think I finally found the magic trick. The longest pry bar that we got in the shop, plus the littlest hammer that we got in the shop. And you see where the pry bar is sitting on the edge of the hammer? That makes the perfect little prying articulation point. And fellers, I think it might be pressed all the way in there. I just had to go one side, other side, back and forth here, and it pushed right into place, I believe. I'm not entirely sure if it might need to go in a little further, but I sure don't want to push it too far and pop it out and have to do it again. But yeah, I think we did it, boys. Whew! That was not fun. Not even a little bit. All right. Now it's time for the scary part. We get to put all our pieces back in place and fill it up with water and see if we can fill it up with water. Find out where else it might be coming out at. Maybe it was only the intake and a freeze plug. Well, maybe. Who knows? Well, fellers, I got the whole cooling system bolted back on and closed up. And you may be able to see it. It's only water right now because, she's holding water so far, which is much better than what we had this time yesterwards. Before, I filled up the radiator not even halfway and she just all over the floor. Whew. But now we've got that freeze plug back in. She's at least holding water all by her lonesome with no pressure. So that's good. Much better. And now we get to put the alternator and stuff back on, put the belt back on it, and put the cap to it and find out what happens when we start pressurizing that coolant system. I'm sure it'll be fine. All right. Radiator's all the way full. And the belt's back on. Here we are again at that moment of truth. Come on, big money, no whammy. Is that a whammy? No, it's fine. Well, that's a good friggin' start there, boys. Now we'll let it run for a while, see if it builds operating temp, and if we continue to have no external leaks, we'll shut her down and pray that we ain't got no internal leaks. That's what we'll do. Whew. It is alive though. Very, very much so. Oh, the old GM catalytic converter smell. Brings me back to my 95 Cavalier days. Okay, well, that was scary. While I was running it for a few minutes there, the temperature gauge just started to move, and then it died. But it almost sounded like it hydrolocked. And then I came over here, checked on the coolant. The level didn't drop very far, just a little bit, kind of like air bleeding out. So I don't think it coolant hydrolocked. I checked on the oil, and it's still at the exact same level it was before and doesn't look any milkier than it already does from being the first oil change after having water in it. So yeah, I don't know why it died. I guess we'll go turn the key again and yeah, see what that does. Big money, no whammy. Oh my. Oh shit. Guess what, guys? I don't know if you could hear that, but that was 100% bearing noise. We must not have set a strong enough prayer for our bearings. Oh shit. Yeah. All right. Well, now that I think about it, that sounds an awful lot like something just went wrong in the valve train department, and we lost a cylinder, and that clickety-clack does not sound like rod or main bearing. That sounds like a dislocated push rod flying all over the place. Great. Well, that'd have been cool to spot that while we had the intake manifold off. Anyway, I guess it's time to pull some valve covers and see what we find. Alright, well, I removed the easy to get to valve cover, and what do you know? Everything looks fine on this side. Isn't that just the way it's supposed to go? So now we get to come over here and remove the alternator and that mount and drain all the water out again. And then we'll pull that valve cover off and see what mysteries await. I bet we're missing a push rod. Alright, well, we pulled all this stuff apart and yeah, it's not any more clear from here. All the rockers and push rods are still in place, just like they were the other day, and nothing has any extra looseness to it, so I don't see any immediate evidence of a collapsed lifter. Huh. That's weird. It's nice we did that for no reason. Anyway, from here, I don't know. Maybe I should hook all my injectors back up and set the other cover back off of it and start it and see if anybody does anything weird when it's clicking and clacking. The only other thing I could think of is, I know the gas in this car is really old, but it sure seems like something just mechanically changed up on us. I don't know. Alright, plug wires back on and out of the way, and we got the serpentine belt out of there. Let's fire on it and see what them valves do. Is that what it do? Something's unhappy. Well, it won't stay running now. I did check the codes. She's got 0 of the diagnostic holes and 1 of the ABS codes. And that's really strange. And I came up here to the front. I laid out this shop rag behind that guy. I turned the key on, cycled the pump once to let it build pressure, and then I shut the key off, came out here, and when I pushed down on that guy, I got a little squirt of fuel, but it wasn't what I should have had. It was like a little, and it came up about that high. But you should have like a spray, 30, 40 something, a lot more than my carburetor's fuel pressure. I run 8 psi, this thing's like 40 or 50 or something. So when I pushed down on it and it only did a little, that told me that our fuel pressure must be low. And the pump runs. So that brought me down here to the fuel filtre, because that all led me to believe that this guy must be clogged. And I finally got it out of here, and I found out that when you blow through the pipes, it's really hard to get air out the other side. And this little filtre may possibly be 20 years old. I don't know. It doesn't look like the replacements. I think she might be OE, fellers. So, yeah, that poor fuel pump. Oh my word, no wonder why it quit running. Jeez. Anyway, so now we're putting a new fuel filter in, and hopefully the pump's not shot out from trying to push fuel through this guy all that time. But when it comes to removing your fuel filtre on your 2004 Grand Prix, these lines are really simple. You like push in on them a little bit, and you'll have these little clips here. Most of that's hidden inside there, but you see the 2 tabs sticking out of the end of it. All you have to do is scooch those down, and then the line will come out. However, this side, oh, I could tell that somebody tried to change the fuel filter in this car on account of the nut was round, and the nut's usually not round. It's usually like a 5/8 hexagonal type of figure. So yeah, it took a long time to get this out. That was either incredibly tight or just like friction welded together over the last 19 years. However, I did learn a secret. I fought this for the longest time because I was holding the filter still and grabbing what's left of their nut with my vice grips, and I was trying to hold the filter and turn the nut. The nut spins, but at a certain point it kind of gets hung up. So I think that was preventing me from getting it loose. And then when I finally started just holding the nut still and grabbing the filter nut and putting just absolute tremendous amounts of pressure and using the cheater pipes, it finally turned. So I think I was turning this guy a little bit, and then he hit the snaggy point, and then I just wasn't making the progress. So definitely a helpful tip there. If your filter's been stuck in place forever and the previous owner never replaced on it, hold the nut still, take the 2 lines loose, hold the nut still, and turn from the filter. Whew, that worked a lot better. Anyway, moving on. Hey, no, we're done. Alright, as it turns out, I forgot to hook up my brake booster vacuum guys, so we had a really bad vacuum leak. That would explain why it wouldn't start here the last time. That's better. So I thought I'd come up here and start pulling all the sparkulators out, see how they look. Yeah, well, most of my spark plugs look like this. Little worn, but not really. Not very old. Look pretty foul-y. Like lots of excess fuel. They don't smell like oil anyway, so that's good. And that's what all 3 of the guys across the front look like. I pulled them out, cleaned them up really nice, sanded the in between where the sparkies happen in there, and re-gapped them. They were still within gap, but they were like at the top edge, so I brought them back to the bottom edge. Yeah, everybody looked cool up here, and most of the cylinders back there were nice until we got to number 6. That could potentially be a bit of an issue. What's funny here is I had an intermittent misfire where it would run fine sometimes and then other times it would, you know, be down a hole. I guess this may have something to do with that intermittent misfire. So that's neat. Looks like at some point something ended up in that cylinder, either while we were working on it or with all the stuff the previous owners did. So yeah, now it's about time to pull these 3 plugs back out again, spin it over a couple times with the compression tester in each hole, and find out if number 6 is significantly lower than 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Great, that's what we don't want to know about. Alright, I got my fuel pump relay pulled out of the box there, so we're not pumping around fuel. And I got a compression tester all rigged up on my number 1. And we'll go through the 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5 and see if they're different than number 6. Should be fine, right? Yeah, and now we find out how much compression our 230,000 mile 3800's got on her. All right. What is that? 160 or is that 70? I think that's like 165, 170 right there. And I believe with our compression ratio, I think it's like 8 point something to 1 on these motors, which is kind of low. That's a really, really healthy number. I believe that's like exactly what we want to see. So that's really, really good for the age of the motor. That's a good sign of lots of life on cylinder number 1 at least. And now we'll write that number down on a piece of paper and continue all the way around, and I'll bring you guys back out when something looks wrong. Alright, so here's where we are so far. 165, 160, 160, 170, 160. And now it's time for this guy. As long as it's anywhere near any of these numbers, then we're in good shape. Hopefully it's not significantly lower, because for 230,000 miles, this is satisfactory number evenage, fellers. You really want them to be like as close to each other as possible and within 5 to 10 psi. 5 preferably, but 10 is not bad on a 20-year-old 200,000 mile car. So yeah, now it's time to we're in number 6 over there where we had the bent spark plug. And the compression should be fine right there too, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. Number 6, come on. High numbers, no whammies. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's bad. Now I'm gonna double check that my compression guy's screwed in all the way and all that, but yeah, I bet we got a bent valve or something like that. A bent valve, blown rings, something's really bad over there. Okay, well, I went ahead and added some transmission fluid and Marvel's Mystery Oil to that cylinder, you know, just in case. maybe we can bring her up to 50 psi. Yeah, I don't know. That's really bad over there. We're gonna have to let that soak on it, see if that affects the compression at all. If it does, I think that's a good indicator that the cylinder walls got beat up by whatever got lost in that cylinder. That either happened when we did the lower intake, or that could have been a previous thing. I've never pulled these spark plugs out, and it's kind of ran the same the whole time. You know what? For that cylinder being down on compression, this thing sounds good, dude. Still a little rattly clangy up here, and she has a little bit of a shaky shake like we would expect for one cylinder being significantly lower on compression than the other 5. But that's not too bad. It might even be able to drive it around a bit. Okay. Well, now I can continue with the cooling of the testing system. Testing of the cooling system and see if it keeps running or if something horrible happens again. Yay. Alright then. Me and the puppy dogs just made it back from our very first ever test drive in the old Grand Prix. And the motor ran the whole time. So that was neat. We didn't go very far, but I went far enough to at least get up into 3rd gear. And it shifted smoothly all the way through. I went like up around the block and back. I think I only hit 35 miles an hour. But you know, our tires are 50 million years old anyway, so we're gonna avoid the highway for a minute. But so far, she feels pretty good. The brakes feel nice. I have an ABS code on the braking system, but it's a right front wheel speed sensor. So either that sensor is misreading, or that may just be from the previous owners doing their Bernies. But yeah, the cooling system. Boys, she did cooling system things. And it's pretty warm out today too. But the gauge in here, ew. While I was driving it around, the gauge didn't come up above, like below the midpoint here, and then when I had it sitting in the yard idling for quite a while and topping my fluids off and whatnot, it would be like a bump above the halfway mark. But she stayed maintaining her temperatures. So far, as of right now, in this very instant, the cooling system is keeping the cooling in the system and out of the oil system. So yeah, that's pretty neat. It's pretty neat. The only other thing I figured out, we have like a half mile of steering play in here. And this car has a rack in the pinion style guy. I've never messed with one of those, so I don't know if that's an adjustable awards type of thing or if it's just completely shot out and dangerous now. Either way, we're definitely making progress. We friggin' got to drive the car finally. It starts and it runs and it maintains the temperatures, and it drove around, and so far, no slippage out of the trans. So hopefully, everything will be fine. But anyway, that'll about wrap up this video here. It's been pretty drawn out, just getting her running and fluids changed. In the next one, we'll get to figure out that horrible steering play and start messing with some other things like windows and interior stuff and whatnot, so long as nothing else pops up here. Yeah, now I can get back in here and put my last torquilizer back on, because I don't think I'm pulling that valve cover back off right now, I hope. Anyway, thanks for watching. Comment, like, subscribe. Say a prayer for the what is this thing? For the Grand Prix. Hopefully our number 6 comes back to life, but I mean, so far, for as much compression as we did lose on number 6, it doesn't drive that bad. It feels pretty smooth rolling down the road, and at an idle, there's like just a little hint of, you can tell it's not quite right. The car's a bit shaky. We definitely popped up a misfire code on number 6 in there, but the little tachometer guy isn't bouncing around, so the RPM isn't having to go up and down to adjust for it. So you never know, maybe she'll come back around. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.